let's finish up our program. The last thing we need to do from this get weather from HTML function is actually return the weather report. We are technically printing it here, so we're communicating it back to the user. But imagine we want to call this function with different data and maybe save it to a database, or we get the temperature back for different locations and then we show them on a map. Right? We can't communicate these 4 pieces of information back to the caller of this function. That's what we're going to do now. And we're going to use this concept called a tuple. There are many data structures that we could come up with. We could put these all in a list and send them back. That would work, but it's a little too flexible. It's not quite as lightweight and constraining as we would hope, right? We just want to get these values back and work with them. We don't want to append more values and things like that. There's also dictionaries, again, maybe a little too rich, if you will. So tuples, you'll see, are just right. Although there's going to be a challenge to working with them, and we'll see that the collections module in Python saves the day. So we want to return something from this method. We'll start with return, right? What do we put? It's easy to return the temperature. It's easy to return the condition. But how do I return the temperature and condition? I can only return one thing from this function. Well, it turns out in Python, you can define this thing called a tuple. Let's go look at that really quick up here. So in Python, we can define a tuple by just putting some values together, and they don't have to be the same type. I can have like 1, 7, the word cat, and even some kind of complex data structure like a list of 1, 2, 3, right? That would be an item in our tuple. Now, if we just print out what this is here, it should look almost exactly like what I have written. So here you see 1, 7, cat, and so on. And we can get individual items. If I wanted the second item, so the 7, these are all 0 based, so 0, 1 would be the second item. And I can access it like this. We can even do cool things like take a tuple and assign them to a set of variables all in one shot. This is called unpacking a tuple. So I could have the number 1, the second number, I could have the string, so we'll say S, and then I'll have L for list. So if I wanted to assign all the values in the tuple, the first one to N1, the second one to N2, the third one to S, the fourth one to L, I can just say this, and Python will literally unpack those. And if I just print out N1, N2, N3, oops, how about S and L, you'll see that it's actually unpacked those, right? It's not the tuple, it's just one after another printing them out. The other thing to notice is these parentheses here are actually optional. Even though they kind of help point out, hey, this is the tuple, it's not the parentheses that define the tuple, it's actually the commas. So here we have this thing separated by a bunch of commas, and we get this. Sometimes you'll see weird code like this where you have just one item, but you want it as a tuple, so you can sort of treat it uniformly. So I could say 1 comma, and that would be the tuple right there. It crashed because I later tried to get the second item. All right, so if you see weird code like that, it's all about the tuples. Now, with that in mind, let's go finish up this app. Back in the weather function, we want to return the condition, the temperature, the scale, and the location. And the format here is almost exactly what we want to do. So we can return a tuple like this. And PyCharm has little squigglies under it to say, you know, those parentheses, not really needed. Okay, so we're going to call this up here. Let's go to where it's used at the top. And we're going to capture the report here. Make sure we get the indentation right. Now, suppose I would like to get the temperature. So for a minute, think in your mind, what would you type here? So I'm going to say the temp in this location is, and I want to do a string.format, and I would access the value from the report by saying some index between 0 and 3, because we know there's 4 items. Which one is it? I don't know. Let's see. I think it was the second one. Let's try. Just take a guess, right? Yes, I was right. But it's not at all obvious what to put there. There's nothing about this data structure that will help me understand that the second one is the temperature. And the only way to know really is to go down here and actually look at the return value explicitly and see, oh, okay, it's the second one. And that makes this hard to work with. And especially if I'm looking up here at this code, suppose we want to make this a little more interesting. Say the temperature in is, let's do the report like it's overcast or sunny, and we'll say 27 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to have to write something like this here. So what number do I put? Well, we know the temperature, which goes here, is going to be this one. So this one is right. I think it was condition was the 0. This one, let's say, is the third, and that must be the second. Is this right? Who knows, right? This is super hard to work with. Let's try. Maybe we got super lucky. The temperature is Celsius in Celsius is mostly cloudy and 8.4, 0.1 Oregon. That is not a super sentence, right? But how am I supposed to know from this data structure, right? Working with tuples, they're great to bundle up sets of related data, but they're kind of hard to work with. So we can do better.